Everyone is hiding in the attic.
My 6-year-old daughter went into my in-laws' house without waiting for me. The in-laws, who were supposed to be resting due to illness, were nowhere to be found, and I had a very bad feeling, starting to sweat in my hands. Hello? Anyone? Even when I called out, the house was eerily quiet. Then, my daughter, who has a mysterious ability, headed straight to the second floor without hesitation. I peeked into the attic, which was stiflingly hot like a sauna, and widened my eyes. To my shock, I found my in-laws in a completely changed state. And then, an even more shocking truth came to light. I'm Sasha, 34 years old. My daughter Maya, who is 6 years old and in first grade, is very precocious.
Daddy, look. I'm wearing my new dress to school today.
After getting dressed in the morning, she spun around near the living room table and struck a pose like a model.
Oh, yeah.
However, my husband Harris, who is 2 years older than me, didn't take his eyes off his smartphone and just gave a half-hearted response.
Hey, Daddy. Daddy?
You're so annoying.
Upon hearing my husband's raised voice, I stopped preparing breakfast and hurried over to them. Maya. Daddy is busy with work, okay? And, daring, please talk to her gently. However, even when I spoke to him, he was glued to his phone and didn't respond. It's great that he's so focused on his work, but when it comes to parenting. I hugged my daughter, feeling completely at a loss with my husband's attitude. One summer morning, amidst such days.
My parents aren't well, so please don't go to their house.
Harris suddenly forbade us from visiting my in-laws' house. Their house, where my in-laws live, is just a 15-minute walk from ours in the neighborhood, and I often took our daughter there. Maya also loved my in-laws, who always treated her kindly and affectionately. If they're not feeling well, shouldn't we go check on them even more? I expressed my concern, but he sighed in response.
Maya might catch a cold from them. It's probably because you visited them so often and they've gotten tired and their health weakened.
I was shocked and hurt as Harris glared at me with his snide remarks. My in-laws always said seeing Maya's face cheered them up.
Anyway, I decided it with my parents, so just follow my decision. Got it?
My husband asserted unilaterally, then returned his attention to his smartphone. Without making eye contact with us even once, Harris went to work. My daughter, wearing a worried expression, headed to the last day of the first term at elementary school. Around noon, Maya returned from school with her report card. She had good grades, so I praised her, but she looked gloomy.
I'm going to visit Grandpa and Grandma.
While stroking her bangs, Maya asked me repeatedly. Actually, Maya possessed a mysterious power, and it's a sign that something serious will happen when she does this gesture. For instance, when we went hiking with my in-laws in spring, Maya insisted on taking a different mountain trail which was more challenging than usual, and we reluctantly followed that path. It turned out we encountered a lost hiker by chance. Upon seeing us, the hiker burst into tears of relief and joy, expressing their gratitude. On another occasion, when we visited my friend's apartment, Maya shouted that she wanted to go to the rooftop. Following her instinct, we found someone attempting to take their own life and we managed to persuade them not to do it. On both occasions, she was touching her bangs. Yeah, you're right. I'm worried about Grandpa and Grandma's health too. Let's go check on them. I had a really bad feeling about it. I could feel sweat slowly forming on my hands. Although Harris just forbade us from visiting my in-laws' house, I was worried about their health and, above all, I was concerned about the ominous signs indicated by Maya's gestures. Hastily, I decided to visit them with my daughter. Amid the loud buzzing of cicadas, we arrived sweaty after about 15 minutes. I rang the doorbell, but there was no response. Maya and I looked at each other, and decided to use the spare key to get in. It was eerily quiet inside the house. Are they out somewhere despite being unwell? While I was confused, my daughter headed upstairs without hesitation.
Mom. Everyone's hiding in the attic.
Huh? Why would they be there? I couldn't imagine them being in what is usually a storage area, but she confidently walked ahead. I peeked into the attic, which was stiflingly hot like a sauna, and widened my eyes. Are you okay? To my shock, my in-laws were tied up and lying on the floor. I called out to them, but there was no response at all. I quickly called for an ambulance and waited anxiously for help to arrive, untying them in the meantime. What's going on? Anger surged within me towards whoever had done this to my in-laws. I will never forgive this. I was determined to uncover the truth and ensure justice was served. From that day on, I began preparing for revenge. Since Maya had just started her summer vacation, I arranged for her to stay over at my parents' house. When I dropped her off, I noticed Maya touching her bangs again.
Open the drawer in Dad's room. Then make a call on the small piece of paper.
Got it. Leave it to Mom. I didn't quite understand the meaning behind making a call on a small piece of paper, but I was sure it would be a clue of some sort. I relied on my daughter's mysterious power to gather evidence. And then, 2 days after finding my in-laws, when my husband returned home from work, I approached him with my head down. I received a call that your father and mother-in-law were found dead.
Huh, what?
Harris looked shocked and repeatedly asked me if it was really true. They were found tied up. Seeing me at a loss for words, my husband immediately had a look of realization on his face.
It must be a burglary. Tying them up like that, there's no other explanation. Yeah, it has to be.
He seemed determined to attribute it to a robbery, no matter what. I narrowed my eyes and glared at Harris. You think so? Well, I think you did it for the inheritance and insurance money.
Ha! Ridiculous. There's no way I would do something like that.
My husband clicked his tongue, and then took out his smartphone and started using it again. Despite just hearing about his parents' death, he seemed busy, staring at his screen and tapping away with his fingers. Hey. Even at a time like this, you're on your phone? Are you that concerned about something? Like stock trading? He looked up from his phone with a surprised expression and quickly turned to face me. I took out 2 pieces of paper from the shelf and placed them on the living room table. You haven't put down your phone because you're trying to recover from investment losses by trading more stocks, right?
How do you?
The paper I presented was a printout of an email notification showing $80,000 in stock losses I found on the computer. The other sheet was an IOU for $80,000 debt that was found in the drawer in his study, which my daughter had told me to open. Unbeknownst to me, Harris had started investing and accumulated significant debts. He turned pale upon seeing the evidence and confronted me aggressively.
Is it a wife's job to snoop around in other people's things?
Huh? Well, if you're going to say that, is it a husband's job to go fishing around for other women and cheat? Actually, while I was going through his computer records, I found evidence of Harris's infidelity. Emails, photos, schedules with his mistress, and more. When I found the evidence, I felt like I was going to collapse. At the back of the drawer, there was also a business card from the woman he was seeing, and it belonged to a shady place. The small piece of paper Maya had mentioned was the business card. I stared at my husband, then pulled out the stack of printed emails and photos and thrust them towards him. You have so much debt and have a mistress. You planned to start over with the inheritance and insurance money, didn't you? But to my surprise, Harris started laughing.
Wow, you managed to dig up all this in such a short time. Quite impressive for someone with too much free time. Were you also after my parents' money?
He seemed to misunderstand, thinking I was happy about my in-law's death and looking for inheritance-related documents. He sat down heavily on the sofa, crossing his legs, and smirked.
Well, you know, a 20-year-old young and beautiful woman got obsessed with me. And I'm starting to get tired of an old hag with a kid.
He had a lewd look on his face and started talking nonchalantly. He looked so pleased, even puffing up his nostrils, that I couldn't help but feel utterly disgusted.
I failed in investments, but I can wipe that out with the inheritance. It was a good lesson for me. It's a fresh start.
He couldn't even cover his own losses, yet he was confident and showed no sign of remorse or reflection. No way that's acceptable. I shouted angrily, but Harris just grinned smugly, looking triumphant.
There's no proof I did anything to my parents. It's only natural that the inheritance comes to me. Is there something wrong with that?
My husband started getting cocky and joking around.
It's all completely wrong.
A thundering voice echoed through the house. Harris turned around in shock, and there was my father-in-law standing there.
Dad!
Seeing his parents, whom he thought were dead, Harris shrilled and panicked. The day after you left your parents in the attic, I found them and saved them. Your father has been hiding in the living room, listening to everything. Knowing his parents were alive, Harris turned pale. With his parents as undeniable witnesses, he had no way to escape the consequences of his actions. After they were taken to the hospital by ambulance, they were saved thanks to medical treatment. Then my in-laws told me the truth. In the evening the day before I found them, my husband visited his parents' house and called each of them to the attic individually, saying he needed to talk to them. First, he tied up his mother and hid her when she was alone, and then he did the same to his father when he returned home and left him on the floor. It seems Harris intended to finish them off with a knife or something, but at that moment, he received an urgent phone call. He made a displeased expression, and said,
It's summer anyway, they'll probably just die from heatstroke.
Then he tightly gagged them to prevent them from calling for help, and headed to work. My in-laws tearfully recounted this to me. Surely, if they had been found just a few hours later, they might not have survived.
Before talking to the police, I really wanted to hear your true feelings directly. I never imagined you were such a dirty coward.
Exactly. You have no idea how much they were suffering when I found them. Harris started trembling as both his father and I blamed him. He must have been afraid of getting caught by the police.
While we were trapped, your mother looked lifeless, but I couldn't move. I felt so useless. And yet, You were too busy cheating.
My husband curled up under his father's yelling, which was so loud that it felt like an earthquake might be happening.
But I won't ever meet such a wonderful woman again. I just wanted to see her one last time before getting caught.
At this point, Harris started crying, still thinking about his affair partner. Right. It's too soon to feel so down. Why don't you call her? When I suggested this, my husband picked up his phone as if it were his last hope. However, when he tried calling his affair partner, a message played.
The number you have dialed is no longer in service.
It became clear that her number had been deactivated. Harris didn't give up and called the shop, but the manager told him that she quit and abruptly hung up on him. My husband looked dumbfounded, clearly not understanding what had happened. Actually, yesterday I contacted the woman to confront her about the affair. She was furious when she found out you were married. When I explained in detail how Harris's affair partner had cursed him as a damn bastard and sounded furious over the phone, he widened his eyes and froze in shock. When I told her that you also had debts, she said she had no use for a broke man and quickly ended things. As I looked at my husband with a disdainful expression, his lips quivered and tears welled up in his eyes. It turns out that his affair partner had believed he was single. Moreover, Harris had acted as a wealthy investor, so she had high hopes for him. When she found out it was all lies, she had lost all interest in him.
You got all excited just because a girl was nice to you at the shop. You fool.
You weren't loved by a young woman. She was after your money. My husband collapsed and started crying.
But we were so in love. Doesn't this make me the victim? I was deceived.
I exchanged looks with my stepfather and we both let out a deep sigh. What are you talking about? $10,000 in damages to your parents, $85,000 in child support for Maya, and plus $80,000 in debt. That's a total of $175,000. Please pay.
No way. I'm already struggling with huge debts from investments. It's impossible.
You brought those debts on yourself. You can't just erase the fact that we almost got killed.
My father-in-law yelled as if it echoed through the neighborhood again, and I glared at him fiercely. In the distance, we heard police sirens approaching. It seemed that my mother-in-law, who had gone to explain the situation to the police, had brought them back with her.
Ha! Did you really call the cops? Sasha, please help me.
Harris trembled and cried as he pleaded with me. There's evidence that you tried to kill your parents, and now your affair and debts are exposed. It's only natural you'd be blamed for all this. Is there something wrong with that? I mimicked my husband's earlier tone and, together with my father-in-law, restrained him until the police arrived. Harris offered no resistance, crying with a runny nose as he was taken away by the police who had arrived.
I'm sorry for raising such a foolish son.
My in-laws apologized to me, but I shook my head in response. You both have always been kind to me and Maya. You've done nothing wrong. It was him who strayed from the right path. We leaned closer together, watching the police car drive away. Afterward, my husband faced trial for restraining and confining his parents. Of course, this incident became known at his workplace, resulting in him being fired. According to his lawyer, he is likely to spend several years behind bars. My in-laws took on the responsibility of child support for Maya, but they completely cut ties with Harris. Several years later, when he eventually gets released, he'll likely find himself alone, trapped in a debt spiral. On the other hand, my daughter and I are doing well. Even now, Maya touches her bangs to let me know when danger is approaching. Both my in-laws and my own parents cherish Maya, saying she's like a guardian. I'm determined to continue protecting my daughter, who has protected our family, with all my strength.